they don't allow the watermen. You can't sell it to restaurants or anything like that because they have to be inspected. But rockfish, every other fish doesn't have to be inspected except for blue cats.
Yeah.
But to have an actual wild striped bass available all year round, it's interesting to me, and it's something that's actually happening right now. Because again, back to like as a country, we've got to have a food source.
So that wouldn't be
consistency.
that would be considered wild.
It is genetically, it's a wild striped bass,
Yeah.
but I think as a practical matter, if it's in your grocery store, it's going to say farmed.
It's going to say farm.
Yeah.
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 Did
They're
you
the
know?
ones
Did you
do the
know
most
that?
work.
What?
You knew all that about how they require them that additional inspection because
Yeah, and it's only catfish. It's not rockfish.
Yeah.
It's not like white perch, yellow perch, channel cats. I don't think channel cats. It's just the blue cats.
Just the blue.
So we were David Sikorski from CCA.
Yes. And like there's one thing underway right now that I would call cooperative research. DNR agreed to do a limited blue cat gillnet study to see the efficacy of a gillnet if it has a lot of bycatch, because we know gillnets have a lot of bycatch if it goes strong.
Yeah.
And can the DNR working with Salisbury University and some watermen do some studies, see if it works? And that's all because the watermen wanted to see, hey, we've got this gear. If you want to kill more blue cats, like give us a chance.
Yeah.
And legislation was put in this year that said everyone with that invasive fish license can get a gillnet and go gillnetting for blue cats. That's a terrible idea. What's a good idea is to work with the industry, see if it works,
Yeah, that would.
and then open it up for the industry if it works. But work with them, get on their boat, fish their net.
Yeah.
Because when you see the survey, the biggest conflict ever, and it's in every fishery, is where the difference between how you survey from the science side versus how you survey from the fishery side. And there's reasons why it's different, but there's also a lot of room for connectivity and overlap, and that's called cooperative research, and there's been a lot of success in that.
I know David Confer. He does the gill netting for catfish. He gets pissed off because he brings in a boat. I mean, a literally shit boatload of catfish, and he's only getting about 65 cents a pound for catfish. And
Who's he selling them to?
Cool Ice, I think it is,
Yeah,
down in Cambridge.
Okay.
It's a processor for that
Processor,
stuff.
yeah.
The problem is that they don't allow the watermen. You can't sell it to restaurants or anything like that because they have to be inspected. But rockfish, every other fish doesn't have to be inspected except for blue cats.
Okay.
Blue cats is the only one that has to be
Yeah.
actually inspected, and that's because the way I hear it is there's farm raised catfishermen or people that represent in your area that represent them, so they're making it harder for the wild caught catfish to really make it because of the farm raised ones being sold to, So the problem is they're saying you go to these places and a lot of them they're done early, but they got to wait for an inspector to get there.
So you're telling me that there are people farming catfish on the Eastern Shore?
No, it's something like Louisiana. You're talking. It's like
So they're looking at the whole market and they're saying, well, we don't need these guys coming and depressing down the prices with their
You
fresh
understand supply
wild
and demand.
catfish.
Yeah.
So from here in Louisiana, we're
can
going to attempt to regulate them in Maryland.
that's what they're
That's
doing.
insane.
It's mostly Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, I think Louisiana, but a lot of all those states is the catfish farming. Like any catfish you've ever seen up until the blue cat got on the
Yeah.
scene on the markets, that was it. Farm raised channel cat. And there's also the swai. So they're the
Yeah.
Asian catfish,
I
right?
know that's why, yeah.
So it's that whole body, it's that whole celeriforms, I think they're called. It's all in that family.
Yeah.
And so the
thought swai was a delicatessen
right.
fish when I was younger and dumber. And then someone told me, this is catfish,
Like, you
dude.
should fancy.
This is, hey, not just catfish. This is farmed catfish.
Yeah. Well, so it was that. It was what this is what Congress does. They listen to people that represent an industry to shape a regulatory structure,
Give them money.
which exists. Yeah, I mean, there's money involved in everything. They give them a reason to listen to them, right? It's lobbying, and it's the reality. I mean,
It is.
Yeah, it is.
and they shaped the regulations so that this was required of wild caught catfish. So wild caught catfish got caught up in it. Wild caught catfish are competition to farm raised. They exist here in the Chesapeake, causing all sorts of hell. And these markets are depressed for these fishermen because most of our systems are out of whack because of how the bay's trajectory is, right? Like crabs are well below the level. So all the systems that used to process crab don't exist.
Right.
Right. Same
There's
thing
only
with oysters.
like one or two.
Yeah, one reason the oysters end up at Bevins in Virginia is because like Harris Seafood and maybe Matomkin down in Crisfield, there's a small number of people processing it. So you get this disruption in the whole infrastructure for the
self-fulfilling
industry.
cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this new opportunity for catfish came on. Should have just been another finfish. It would take a while to build markets and be stable, but you add the USDA inspection. It's literally like paying for the salary of another person for a year.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, if you're done cutting on one line when you're ready to cut blue cats, because you have to clean the line, get it all set up, have that inspected and get started, you're waiting on somebody stuck in traffic to
And
show up.
what is the justification for the inspection?
There's absolutely no justification.
What is their justification?
Oh,
Do you know?
Just economic capture,
Yeah.
No,
market
but like,
capture.
what's the official? Is what I'm asking.
Because you're gonna mess their money making.
No, I understand the result, but I'm saying what is. There's no way they said, "Hey, yeah, we're going to make you guys have an inspection because we don't want you to depress the prices." That wasn't the reason. So I'm asking, like,
Yeah. So I mean, the having a processing standard of food is obvious. Like everybody wants that, and there are health code standards for the processing of seafood.
Right.
And there's HAP certification, Department of Health.
is that what the inspection is for this? There, it's like
It's just
trying to be a
additional. No, it's
quality.
just additional. And so this one is largely targeting those wild imports, or the imports from international sources.
Sure.
And so the reality and the automatic perception is that, international imported farmed seafood, like shrimp especially, are going to have all these things in them. Therefore, they're a subpar product. And so we need to defend American.
So it's the same type of inspection that they require for foreign imports.
This bill, when it was added to the Farm Bill in whatever year it was, it then created that blanket for all of these fish.
Wow.
And so blue catfish had to fall into that category. So it doesn't matter that they're domestic wild
It's
caught.
not where you caught it; it's the type of fish.
Yeah, there's nothing unique about the blue catfish in the Chesapeake, the waters of the Chesapeake. Like, it's not like, rockfish should be under that because there's something special here. It was largely just creating that pathway for stability in the farm catfish industry against a foreign
under the guise
market.
of quality protection.
Yeah, and under a foreign market and under the guise of quality. And maybe there were some quality benefits that came to that to protect the consumer. But this problem we have here, I've been told can't be reversed because of World Trade Organization regulations. And so it's like, you can't create a waiver. Yeah. You can't create a waiver for a Chesapeake Bay fisherman to not process their catfish, but then the guy in Vietnam raising swai, who's also has to be certified to sell here. Now you're disadvantaging that person, and that's against World Trade Organization agreements.
Yeah, so we have no protection for our own.
We can't reverse our own thing we created.
Yeah, that's wild. And what's even crazier is we know that farm raised fish is far riskier. If we're talking about quality protection control for the public's health,
Yeah.
I would think farm raised
Would be worse.
would be. I think there need to be an inspection there far more than I would.
Yeah, but that's where
course,
Vietnam
wild
and
caught.
all them places they're not going to have
Yeah.
the regulations that we would have
So
here
that's
anyway.
a clear just contradiction in within that. And like you said, I mean, it's pretty clearly a ruling to bolster up the farm industry for aquaculture.
Yeah, I mean, the result is it makes the markets more difficult for the watermen.
Yeah.
Did
Who
you
are the
know?
ones
Did
that
you
do the
know
most
that?
work.
What?
You knew all that about how they require them that additional inspection because of
Yeah, and it's only catfish. It's not rockfish.
Yeah.
It's not like white perch, yellow perch, channel cats. I don't think channel cats. It's just the blue cats.
Just the blue cat.
Yeah.
Is it I think it's just the blue cats. I think it
might
was.
be. I can't remember exactly, but either way, what we end up having right now, you have the big three. You have oysters, crabs, and finfish, but really rockfish. Rockfish quotas are down. You have oyster markets are depressed, even though
Yeah.
we've seen abundance increase in Maryland.
But the prices were
Clearly,
pretty low
when the
this
market
year.
comes back, we're in good shape for that. And then you have the crab situation. I always joke around. I'm allergic to crabs, unfortunately. Have not been my whole life. It's my cross to bear in later in life.
That sucks.
Shrimp, crab, lobster, and crayfish.
Yeah.
And I always joke around. People are like, "Oh, like what's our position on this crab thing?" And I'm like, "I'm allergic to them and their policy."
Well, I mean, that's what we talked about a couple times. How I was watching Luke. I was watching Jay Fleming. They're out there getting that at 65 cents a pound. And then we were, because I really like Noah Bressman from Salisbury.
I talked to him earlier today.
I really do. But then he just said they just got a grant, money, whatever it is, to check and see if blue cats are eating striper eggs. And and I'm sorry, me and him are going like, I would think they're eating them.
Yep.
They're eating them. I mean,
Yeah, case
so
closed. They are.
yeah, they're eating them.
Wait, striper eggs exist, blue cats exist. Check. Yeah.
So then we were saying, well, why not take money like that instead of doing? I think we all understand that the blue catfish is very detrimental to the Chesapeake Bay when it comes to crabs, stripers, and that's where another thing when we talk about stripers in the rivers and they looked at juveniles where they take the test and they take everything the same way for the last. I think me and you had this discussion before.
Yeah.
But why not take the money
I talk
and
about
give it?
stripers every day.
Yeah. Why not? Why aren't we giving more money to the watermen? Because I told him if you give them at least $1, maybe it's $1 a pound. You give them $1 a pound.
Yeah.
Then you're going to have commercial guys, and they can really.
Yeah.
You're talking boatloads.
One question about that, because that sounds like a separate issue then, right? So on one hand, we've got this regulation that's kind of making it less efficient for people to catch.
Less beneficial for them.
Right.
They make less.
Okay. So question. Okay. You're telling me that in some way this inspection rule is affecting the price of what they can sell that catfish for?
I think
it's
so.
depressing the price.
I think so.
So look, you got dockside value. That's what the waterman's going to sell it to. They're selling it to a processor.
Okay.
In the case of blue cats, it has to be a certified processor.
Yes.
There's one little tiny loophole, but I'm not going into that. There are people that can sell direct to the public with a little loophole. They're limited.
Yeah, you won't say it live here
We'll
because I got a trial line commercial
later.
license.
Call the retail exemption. Google it. Ask ChatGPT about it. I figure it out. Good luck. I get 10%. So you're selling the catfish. That processor is going to be dealing with all these other species you see readily available.
Sure.
Like a lot of salmon, Chilean sea bass, swordfish, tuna. Depending who they are, they're going to have all these priority species. The fish yields about 27% body weight to meat. And so that's one component. So the processor's buying the whole darn fish. The waterman's getting their 65 cents a pound, and it could vary from 50 to 80 cents, depending on what the market's doing. Mm-hmm. Some fishermen that are getting consistent landings to the processor will pay them more because the processor doesn't want to have to go looking for fish. Mm-hmm. The processor has their inspector, has their line ready. Yeah. They want to know they've got enough fish to cut to fulfill the market they have.
Like paying a retainer then, basically, on your fish, yeah.
And so they're making a choice. If I pay at this level, then I do all this stuff. I've then got to keep it cold, freeze it, package it, ship it, move it. I've also got the waste product. What am I going to do with that? Can I make some money off of that? And so that's what is happening. And so you're going to find blue cats in the grocery store at $8 a pound, maybe. The 65 to 8 is paying for all that stuff that processor had to do. Yeah. Selling it to the retailer's choosing that top choice.
Sure.
So you've got these three pieces of the chain. What we've talked about, I'm on the Invasive Catfish Advisory Committee. It's advising DNR to what they do. They have a limited budget. Right. So every time it's like, well, why don't we spend money on this? Mm-hmm. Somebody's got to find the money. Congress just makes it out of thin air. So they're the ones that should do it. And
we can't do that.
No. I've long said that $1 subsidy per pound landed and reported should get paid out to the fishermen, and tried to literally figure out what is that actual mechanism. And it's happened before. It's happened in other fisheries. It happens in the farming world. There's a lot of food production subsidies out there.
Yeah.
And I think it's a no-brainer.
Well, look at corn.
And if you look at exactly. Corn, soybeans, chicken, beef, milk, cheese, it's all subsidized.
So subsidy would be great, but my question is, how is this inspection regulation lowering the price they can sell per pound of the fish?
Because if the public's only going to pay a certain amount in an already really complicated seafood market. There's a lot of cheaper options like tilapia, whatever else might be readily available at every single counter.
So there's a market price based on basically the demand.
There's
for
a
the
cap
fish
there, and they're going to have what they want to make and how quickly they're going to sell it.
Sure.
That's all going to trickle back down to the waterman and how much he can have available to sell. And because it's high volume, because it's a low price, it's just this tiny little bit of margin that matters to the processor and the grocer. And the processor and the grocer have all these other options. So unless you're incentivizing the waterman to land it with a subsidy, possibly even a processing subsidy, which they've already done. They've done grants to help pay for the USDA burden, and they have all these other programs.
But that sounds like a normal, demand determines the price, right? So again, where is the inspection?
Well, the difference is. Let me give you an example.
If you're thinking about the revenue and the expenses in the business there, you add more to the expense side with the inspection components.
They have to pay for the inspection.
Right.
Yes, because it's a person.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a person.
But so
There
now,
it is. Okay, I didn't really understand that.
yeah,
I
it's
thought
that
the
extra
government's just
cost.
sending out a guy.
No.
No.
So it's
That
different.
is.
Well, it's
I got no other word for that.
I talk to processors that are like, we actually make enough buying cut catfish from a certified processor, even though they're processed.
Yeah.
So like, we'll get an order in and be like, he'll call around and be like, hey, Bob, what you got? What you got? Make a couple 50 cents $1 on it and just move it.
Sure.
Middleman, which is what they do anyway. They're moving a commodity.
Yeah, that's crazy.
but you can't go to like down in Cambridge. There's a seafood market. I don't think you can come with the boat. You can't come with a boat with catfish. I don't think you can just give it to the meat market, right?
No.
Yeah, but you can do it with the white perch. The guy came with the boat. He had if he's got crabs.
The waterman.
Yeah, the waterman comes in. He just harvested a boatload of white perch. He comes right in. He can sell it to.
Oh, you're saying sell direct to the public?
No. He sells right to the market. So I have there's a seafood market. You go and you buy your shrimp.
And there's like a whole white perch sitting in the ice, right?
Yeah, there's a whole white perch where I don't think you can do that with blue cat, right? Because it's got to be inspected.
Well,
because
The
they can't sell.
processing of them needs to be inspected. I'm not sure
the
if
whole
how a
in
whole
this
blue cat works.
the whole
Okay.
in the situation was the cost.
Right.
When you say, "Hey, it just has to be inspected," well, there's a lot of things that the government makes us inspect that we don't really have to come out of pocket for, right? Well, scratch that. Actually,
Oh,
damn
let's start the list.
No, I'm sorry.
I'm ready.
Never mind. Almost every fucking thing. Now that I think about it, it's something that you would think intuitively would be free because it's government mandated. But now that those dumb words just left my mouth, I realize no. I've been
Kind of like when you buy a house, you think you
Yeah.
own it until you
I've
don't pay
been-
your taxes, and then you realize you don't own
Yeah,
it.
you don't pay.
Yeah.
You don't pay your property taxes.
but so yeah, I was just naive enough to believe that this would have been basically a feeless inspection that was mandated. Because it was mandated, you think, okay, well, if they're going to make them slow down their catch and take time between when they can actually bring it to market for this mandated inspection, at least it would be free.
Yeah, because they can't process it. They can't do
No,
anything
that's
with it.
another
until-
charge.
It's like when you go down to Hawkers down in like Rehoboth Beach. I mean, it's kind of they.
One sec. I'm sorry. I imagine this fee at some point raises as well.
Of course, everything. The dollar is
So I-
worth less. It automatically goes up.
It's like, when he says he's got to clean everything. I mean, when you go down to there's a grocery store that I go in when I go there to well, that's when it was Bob Evans. I go through the meat, and you go in there during wintertime, and they got freaking deer hung up all inside. But they have to literally clean the whole market and everything before they can process the deer. And then they have to process a deer, and when they're done, they got to completely clean it all over again to do the beef and all the other stuff, the pork.
Okay.
Well, and it's one thing if it's just some fish out there. Like let's just say rockfish have to be inspected.
Yeah.
At least they're a native species. There's this long history with them. I mean, blue cat showed up on the full bay in 2018, 2019.
Right.
The freshet year, they're spawning in pretty much every tributary.
Is this the state of Maryland that is mandating this inspection, or
No,
this
it's
is a federal?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this federal law, I'm assuming, is national. Every port everywhere when it comes to blue catfish has to have an inspection.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there have been monies made available. You hear about them. You hear the politicians take credit. And there's the one act was in Congress, the Maws Act, where they're talking about using it for pet food, creating loans.
Pet food.
Like they love creating these little loan programs and grant programs, but it's still incumbent upon the business to then do another thing, another process, which time is money, and there's risk there for them to apply for these grants to utilize these species. Many of the companies that have gotten up to speed with the processing, when talking about do we want processing inspection or not, now that they have the inspection certification and they know how to do it, it's built into their business model. They like it because it actually opens up different markets to them as well. So having that USDA stamp can be beneficial for the additional markets. So it's all part of that analysis of like, what
So
do
it
I
could be
choose to do?
optional.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And
But it all comes back to the waterman still having this product that the person that buys them from the person that buys it has other options
yeah.
because the customer wants fish.
Right.
Right. There's other things that can fill the gap.
Yeah.
And that's why seafood as a market as a whole has always been complicated. You see a lot of the controversy with shrimp, what's in the shrimp.
Yeah.
You see a lot of controversy with salmon. And then I know we got to get talking about menhaden at some point.
Yeah.
That's a whole other thing. What do you feed farm fish? And you were saying earlier, about farm fish. Like farm fish are intuitively bad. Wild caught is going to be good. There's no question. I have that general mentality. It's not that simple. There's a lot of really high quality
I'm sure.
farm fish.
Yeah.
We've gotten, so wearing my hat as an Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission member, we got presentations from NOAA's Office of Aquaculture a couple times recently, and they have an amazing striped bass aquaculture program they're bringing online.
I've seen, you're absolutely right. I've seen a few where they effectively turn it into, it's not, just like a retention pond filled
Yep.
where they just dump pellets, but it's a living, breathing.
High tech.
They've got, what do you call it? Hydroponics on the top.
Yep.
And the fish poop is actually feeding the plants, and the plants are pulling out.
Yep.
It's essentially a little ecosystem.
Yep.
And so you're absolutely right. It doesn't have to be this disgusting, poisonous thought that you have about farmed anything.
And there's a ton of science, like the NOAA Sea Grant programs involved in that stuff. Universities that are tied into the federal programs. There's research centers that are happening. Research is going on all over the place to that effect, because in the end, we have to feed people.
Yeah.
And we can all dream of the old days, but the old days are gone.
Yep.
Some of those are for reasons why we've made bad decisions about the way we treat our watershed. Sometimes it's just the inevitability of what nature's doing out there, and we're not in sync with like look at striped bass. 7 years of poor spawning, and lots of people that rely upon that fish being at higher abundance. Well, you have 7 years of poor spawning, less striped bass population. That's tough. And if that's a food source, because it is, it's not only an economic driver, but it's a food source. We need food. Like, it's a national defense thing. And like striped bass aquaculture, immediately I saw the information and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. They've done selective breeding of different fish to get different traits. And they're actually the viable location for striped bass aquaculture is in the Gulf of Mexico or Gulf of America, whatever it's called these days.
That's the most optimal place to
what's
farm.
crazy. So like a striped bass is a temperate bass, like 60 to 80 degrees F is about its proper range.
Right.
And if they're federal, they may be state water, but I think they're federal because it's NOAA. So in the Gulf, federal waters go out to 9 miles, or state waters go out to 9 miles. Federal waters start there. And so they're talking about permitting these floating structures that they have out there right now, and they're growing red drum. But they noticed as you start getting more wintertime kills in Texas of like the wild population, the aquaculture red drum are also being affected because they're having these cold swings and these wintertime cold.
It's cold this year.
Well, so they're figuring out, well, wait, if we can get striped bass that are not that different in a market sense from a red drum and a striped bass, like if they're
certainly survive, they're more cold tolerant.
Yeah, they're more cold tolerant. Why don't we start growing these down here? So they're seeing this transition where they're doing more striped bass in the market down there. Well, if you're a wild harvest striped bass fisherman, it's intuitive to think, okay, aquaculture is competition. Then question, is it a quality product versus the wild animal? That question should always
be.
Yeah. What are they feeding it? What kind of conditions are they in? What else is added to it that could be bad? Like, I don't know if they're giving it drugs of some sort.
Now, to compound the previous topic of conversation, from what I remember hearing and reading was that blue catfish do eat oysters as well.
Clams. I've seen clams.
Or is it just clams?
I think I've seen clams. Never seen an oyster in them. But I'm sure they.
There's studies that have shown through stable isotope analysis oysters in their stomachs.
Yeah.
Right. And I would think that just from a matter of practicality, they're probably capturing spat in the larval stages.
Yeah.
Just as they're in the water column, like
Quick snack.
inevitable.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if they're targeting them, but they're probably consuming.
If it's there, they're going to eat it.
At the early stage of attaching, maybe they're brittle enough where they could kind of get on a reef and get rid of them. But a catfish to me is an area that lives in a muddy, silty type of environment in its native ranges. They absolutely root for mussels and clams, which are in that substrate, not attached to something hard.
Right.
So I have a hard time believing they have a high instance of oyster in their diet. It's more the other shellfish, which makes sense because blue cats overlap with clams and mussels in their native habitat.
Yeah.
Not oysters. And so it just doesn't make sense to me. But to go back to the aquaculture thing with striped bass, like I saw that and went, wow, this is interesting. If you have, there's all these components of how it can relate to recreational versus commercial. If you have another commercial striped bass option in the market. And then so immediately I talked to a couple people in the commercial industry and they're like, thinking about it defensively. This is competition. And I talked to somebody that's pretty well informed on salmon. And what happened with salmon is aquaculture took off to replace wild fisheries in most of the market. And it actually led to a point where it held the price point up of the wild fish better. because what happens is striped bass will always be on the menu as that farm raised product, just like farm raised salmon's on every menu you can find.
To pay a premium for.
It's consistently there because the processor can get it, the restaurateur can get it, the person driving it to the restaurant can get it. All those pieces of the supply chain are consistent with the protein that they know the consumer wants. They can fine tune their businesses to maximize their profitability and efficiencies. The wild fisheries are always going to have trouble with that because you're up against Mother Nature, regulatory structure, other political groups,
Sure.
everybody else you're competing with. And so the great question that I'm interested in is what will happen and how long will it take to have a robust wild striped bass genetics, striped bass aquaculture program? Because right now, the striped bass, the farm raised striped bass you find, many are grown in Mexico. There's questions about standards maybe there. And then it's not been as practical and you're getting like this little hybrid.
Yeah.
But to have an actual wild striped bass available all year round, it's interesting to me. And it's something that's actually happening right now. Because again, back to like as a country, we've got to have a food source.
So that wouldn't be
consistency.
that would be considered wild.
It is genetically, it's a wild striped bass.
Yeah.
But I think as a practical matter, if it's in your grocery store, it's going to say farmed.
It's going to say farm.
Yeah.
It has
That's interesting. I mean, I also would wonder if there's a possible. This is where I thought you were going with that, which was that the wild caught industry could still maintain itself because
where
now
it's
there's a
going, yeah.
premium on wild fresh, right? And it's like when you go to the restaurant and they tell you sockeye salmon, right, caught from Alaska,
Yeah,
right?
like
You
the
know,
run's on.
it's
a
about
wild
to be a
fish.
$25 little fillet of salmon,
Yep.
and you're like, I'm gonna pay that because I know this is gonna be damn good, right?
Yep. And people want to actually support the fishermen on the other end. I mean,
Absolutely.
I'm never going to change this perception of CCA or me, but people think I'm anti-commercial fishing or that kind of thing. It's like
I've heard that once or twice before.
I hear it
I'm just kidding.
a couple days a week. It's for people that don't actually know me and understand. Like
Right.
I'm very interested in this stuff, not because of the outcome for the straight bass commercial fishery, but these things are happening because these things are food.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting situation to live in where we have in many ways, you could say an overpopulation, or at least a mismanagement of how our population has inhabited the Chesapeake watershed.
Yeah.
Therefore, we treat our estuary like a sewer, literally.
Yep.
And it's also something we care about and we want to take care of. Well, we have a funny way of treating things we take care of, right?
Surely.
But if you have value, whether it be economic value from a job or cultural value, which is another big component of it, you have the jobs can come in many ways. Everybody can win. And when it comes back down to it, one thing that can always bring us together is sitting around a table and having a bite to eat, a drink, etc.
Yeah.
So like we can't lose sight, even as a recreational angler. Like I recreationally fish so I can catch my dinner.
Yeah.
If allowed, if ready, if willing, etc. Right. And I also have a lot of understanding of and respect for that. A lot of people are using that resource in lots of different ways.
Sure.
And so it's never as simple as anyone would like. Also on the straight bass front, people want to see like hatcheries happen. Well, this aquaculture stuff tells me a little bit more about what's going on from a science and from a government investment in the future of growing striped bass strictly for aquaculture, because that's NOAA's job in that division. But there's lots of other people that say, okay, well, if the population's down, how do we jumpstart that population with the hatchery? And the problem is it's very expensive. And when you think of it,
If you're going to do it right,
what's that?
especially if you're going to do it right.
Yeah, yeah. And you've got to start from somewhere, and then you also have to set goals of do the math on it. You're going to have X number of millions of striped bass that are estimated to be born in a successful spawn. And the moment that sperm meets egg in the water column, that critter's born, and then they start dying at exponential rates. It's the reality of life.
Yeah.
Like everything that is born into a year class over time, eventually they're all gone. People, plants, animals, you name it. It's just a natural process called death. And so if you're doing it from a hatchery, and let's just say you produce 1 billion striped bass, how many are going to be left? How does that compare to what we estimate the natural population provides on its own? And the numbers I've seen is it's just orders of magnitude less in the hatchery sense versus what nature can provide. And unfortunately, you get to a certain point where it's like, well, shit, we should have been releasing even a small amount with little success if you're going to end up in a period like we're in right now, which is effectively a drought of spawning along with a drought of water. But and it always comes back to then who has the money, who's paying for it, how do we get it done? And you can never get anything to be fixed as quickly as it's degraded.
Right.
No, it's money.
So I got to do a quick check on learning here, right? All right, because I'm learning a lot. So
All right.
I am putting myself in the audience's position.
Yeah, me too.
Some of these things I have to imagine if I didn't know. Now, so a lot of people probably watching it and going, this guy's an idiot because he's asking, do oysters make their own shells?
No, 'cause I think you're asking
baseline stuff.
Yeah,
But
because I think
this
you're
is-
asking
Yeah,
smart
I've been
questions.
nerding out on this stuff for 20 years.
This
and
is
just trying to
something,
understand,
right,
So I appreciate this.
to understand how the oyster even works, right? How are we going to talk about saving it? What's the importance of shells? You hear these buzzwords, collect your shells. We should do recycling shell. We should take out, why can't we get blue catfish to be sold more? Like these are, here, okay, here's the details.
Yep.
We need oyster shells because these oysters need a substrate these spat need a substrate to attach to in order to grow their own shell, right? So they can't, it's not that they're entering the shells necessarily that we're putting in the water. It's that they're using those as a jump off point to now grow and make their own. Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Now I know the very extreme importance. I knew it was important. I just didn't know why.
Yep.
And so now moving on to the blue catfish. I did not fucking know that these guys are having to go through an inspection that they pay for through federal mandated inspection simply because it's a blue catfish, which is on a list of species and which must be federally inspected by USDA.
Yep.
And they're paying for it, which now means that there's less efficiency in the process of trying to bring this animal wild caught to market.
Right.
Didn't know that. So when we sit around talking about the blue catfish problem, they're out of control. Well, now we know. It could be
It takes so much.
it could be a thing that could be as simple as allowing people who are willing to go out and catch them on large scale, people who are willing to harvest them. It could be as simple as allowing an exception here in the Chesapeake Bay because they are so invasive and destructive, allowing an exception that they can forego the inspection. That's simple, right?
Only if we, on a specific level, only if we decide to undo the whole international agreement. It's the only way the exemption could happen in the Chesapeake if we undid that. I don't think that's possible. So I think moving forward, blue catfish will be the species that is inspected. It does have market impacts.
Yeah.
And it's still a catfish too. It's not a halibut. It's not a grouper.
Right.
It's not a $40 a pound fish in the market, in the retail market, right? So there's only so much meat left on the bone, and it's always going to be on that harvester piece, the smallest piece.
Right.
It's like that in everything.
It's an international agreement, but the important point you brought up was that it's an agreement that was largely bolstered in support by the farming industry.
Yeah, limiting their competition.
Yeah. So it's not one in which you look at it and go, oh, they want people to be safe. We never know what's going to. No, it's more about, of course, the money, which we could have assumed before we even began the conversation.
Yeah,
politics.
That's number one is regulations
Yeah.
are not necessarily to make you safe or the outcome to be you expected.
So
That's the fine print.
these are the things that I learned today, folks.
Yes, yes.
I appreciate the information. Now, you mentioned that people might have a view of you as somebody who's anti-commercial. I imagine that's because
You had to double that up there, yeah.
Well, yeah, because I spent a lot of time with like really high up. Robert goes to these meetings with him that I thought was going to come on with us the other day,
Okay.
and he's part of it. And
he's part of what?
like when it comes to
He's a commercial fisheries.
he's a commercial fishery thing, and
The guy, he's part of the team. We don't
he
like.
loves.
Dave.
And I tell you, all he does, he loves talking about David. He loves David.
Yeah.
He does. He does. But it's because he represents
In
the
a
way I look
genuine
at it.
way, you mean?
No.
okay.
Yeah, not at all. No, because it's we were talking about Robert. Robert, I think Robert's a smart guy. I think he is. He's just going to.
I have no comment.
Yeah, but I've
What are his reasons
Regardless of
for?
who
well,
we
he
talked about
thinks
it.
that he is definitely against commercial guys. When commercial guys were very upset because
You're saying he is against commercial guys?
Yeah,
that's what
and
that's-
CCA.
Yeah, the CCA and everything because it was a lot of big things with like the rockfish. The commercial guys
Man of
were a
War
lot-
Shoal issue is also
Yeah, Man of War Shoal was a really
Not
big
agreed
issue.
on.
Unpopular decision.
Right.
And that's
he
because
thinks they should be. Robert and the commercial guys think and have argued in meetings. I've listened to the meetings where they've argued that there's about 250 million bushels of shell there. That if you could harvest some of them shell and move it to areas that could help the spat grow instead of they're against the concrete being put in there.
Why? What is their reason for that?
They're saying it's a foreign substrate. So he rather put natural substrate in there to where, even though it works, they never said that it don't work, but they're saying that, it's a foreign substrate, it's concrete, that you would rather want to put shell, the natural that's in the Chesapeake Bay and use that as building up a reef or building up oysters other than putting
So
concrete in.
effectively, there's a disagreement as to how destructive this dredging of these oyster beds would be.
Yeah.
And there's two different kinds of dredging. There's the dredging for the buried shell, which is pick it up, put it in a barge, put it somewhere where there's more spat, put it out, let the spat attach to it, later time go out and harvest it. Then there's actual harvest dredging, which is an oyster dredge,
Right.
normal dredge, and there's also debate around that, how destructive it is to the actual oyster bed. But there's also evidence and real world experience where as more shells available on the surface because it's been dredged over, pick it up and knock the silt off. If it's clean, when there's spat in the water, of course the spat's going to attach.
Might actually help a little bit.
There's two pieces with dredging.
Yeah.
There's the historical approach, and then there's the actual history. I'm sorry, the actual industry gear for the purpose of harvesting oysters.
Well, but what was it called again? The point you were talking, man of war.
Man of war.
So right. So what
That's
you're
the
saying
buried
though,
shell dredging.
there's effective. Yeah, right. So there's an effective disagreement as to how destructive you believe it would be to remove those shells.
Yeah, us and a large coalition of
Yeah.
And the commercial guys are saying it's not as it's going to be maybe not. They're not saying it's not going to be destructive, but they're saying effectively the benefit is going to outweigh any destruction of that area.
Shell's needed to take advantage of more shell on the surface when there's more spat in the water.
Instead of having it shipped in from California.
Okay.
When we
So
got
it's
it
a matter
there.
of the trade-offs of where you get that resource from. And only recently have the economics switched to a point where I think it is more economically viable to bring in shell from another resource like they did in the Pacific, because they were using it to build roads in a national forest. And it had been sitting out for years. And so it was allowed to bring in, it's from a different species of oyster.
Yes, that's why it has to be. I mean, now as we were talking, it has to be cleaned.
Yeah.
So it has to be. I don't know if it's chemically clean or whatever. It's got to be done. It's got to be completely clean because you don't want anything that's there and then bring some other invasive something in here.
It's just aged and baked in the sun. Like that's
Oh,
what
really?
cleaned is. Yeah, it's over time, so that they know that no living organism can be there anymore because it's had so much time in the sun being bleached out.
So
It's a trust me, it's a back and forth, but
No, and it's been
you know,
a debate
when it
since,
comes to
like,
crabs,
I find this very interesting.
20 years.
Yeah. So
longer.
they've been considering doing this at that point for.
They started
20
in
years or longer?
1962. They stopped it in 2006, and so I think that's the right dates. No, 2004, and so it was 42 years of dredging. No, so maybe it was 60 to either way. It was something like that.
Of removing these buried shells.
Yeah, all over the upper
Man-of-war.
bay, they found buried areas where little hills and humps, and they took that shell off. And then they got to a point where it was like, we need to approach a different area because we're out of shell here.
Yeah.
Oh, Man-of-War has a ton. Let's go after Man-of-War. Well, Man-of-War was a multi-use area. It's not just a flat bed.
That's when
upside.
your organization stepped in and said, "Wait a minute."
And along with many others. And at the time, the state also pulled the funding. And of course, it's always oversimplified by people that I think are more focused on the politics and then making up stories about the politics about how it happened. Like that's one of the things where there's criticism about CCA and CBF. Like we made some magic wand and things happen. I'll tell you, it's not that simple. The state also saw that there was pushback, and so they pulled the permit. And it was during a period of just looking at all things oysters.
Yeah.
Population tanked 03. Repletion program stopped around the same time period. A big scientific study came out. It was called the AI. I can't think what it's called right now. The oyster. Some impact study was done that led to aquaculture. It led to the changes that we've had in management, and it's led to whether those actions actually caused oysters rebounding or not. Yeah, in some ways, but it's never the full equation.
Yeah.
Like our policies still have to rely upon nature to make us look good.
Right.
And so in general,
It's a crapshoot.
where we've landed is oyster biomass is up. We kept peeling back layers of oyster management, which we can't do tonight. There's all these other little nuanced things which impact the industry too and are important for DNR to listen to. And a lot of times just oysters in general gets lumped into this little bucket where it's like, oh, it's this group versus that group. No. Quite often it's the agency's inability to work with the watermen in the way they want, and the groups like ours being a scapegoat.
Yeah, you caught in the middle.
Quite often.
Yeah.
Quite
Yeah, I've seen that. I've been on the light receiving end of that just for things that I've recommended. It is the
don't have an opinion online.
yeah.
so
But yeah,
I was gonna say
it's about 20:07. This place closes at 8. Okay. So the only thing is because I can think that we could sit here and probably talk for another 2 hours. But
I'm sure.
So I'm figuring 7 to about 7:15. We're going to cut. So we got about maybe another It's 20 of.
Okay.
So it gives us about another maybe half an hour or more.
Half hour.
Like I said
Yeah.
earlier,
So we should stop.
I get paid to talk to.
I think this is
my job.
a really good topic to stick on. I mean, so because effectively, this theme continues to play out within the Chesapeake Bay conservation world
Yeah.
of commercial versus regulatory bodies, and then also the environmental groups that just want the best, right? They're not, hey, I'm here to advocate for the federal government. They don't need advocation, right? But also the commercial guys usually feel like those two bodies, the environmental groups and the regulatory bodies, are not on their side. And typically that's because they're on the side of, we want to continue to use this
resources.
body of water and continue to take out the resources that we use to pay our lives, right?
Yeah.
And so it's very understandable. But what is not understandable here in this specific situation is if they had been dredging these shells from below in order to respat them and get them into other beds, right? The whole idea from that point of view then is, hey, we believe this is a more than viable way of continuing, at least I'd imagine, either growing the oyster population or at least keeping it level so that they can continue to do their harvesting, right? Okay, so they're saying, we're going to get these shells, we're going to spread them out to beds, respat them, and that's going to make this whole industry continue to be viable. However, we are running out of beds to pull these shells. So here's this man of war point where we'd like to use, there's a whole bunch of shells. Here's the problem that I immediately see, which is if you're running out of beds to get these shells, that means that you have not been reharvesting the shells that you had already taken up effectively enough. You're not reharvesting those effectively enough to begin to make this viable.
Yeah, like recapturing the shell.
You're not so if you're not already, because what tells me that is that you're saying you're running out and you're having to now go to new places to pull them out. So there is a giant red flag that this is not a viable way of trying to conserve the industry.
One word we use a lot, and you must define it before understanding it, is sustainable. And so what I'm hearing you say is, and this is part of our issue with the man of war proposal, it's you're going to keep doing things the same way and always rely upon the bottom of the bay, these bars, to give you more shell for it to work.
And what happens when it stops?
Then what?
Yeah, then what?
And we also have, for a long time, have not really had a proper fishery management plan for oysters. And it should be a lot easier to manage oysters than finfish, because at least you know where oysters are. You can go see them. You can survey them. It's pretty simple.
They're there year round.
Yeah, they don't move. They may get covered up and die. They may really, flourish in a certain area. And we have a survey, which is not perfect. No survey is. It's just a glimpse of what's going on the bottom. Then you have the industry's required to give certain reports. The industry's limited by number of bushels they can take per day on these bars. And all these things are what we call fishery removal controls or fishery effort controls. So it's like, how much across all fishermen do we project they might potentially take? How many is in the population? What percent of the population should be left intact? Also, what is lost by the fishery operating? Like, if you power dredge a bar, you're going to cause death on some of the sublegal and softer oysters. That's just part of it. In theory, you should be understanding these inputs and impacts in order to have a sustainable fishery.
Absolutely.
There's also always a lot of pushback to whether or not the models that are built, the science surveys and all that kind of stuff.
Because when it spits out an answer we don't like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
I don't like the science.
yeah, I don't like the answer, so I don't like
What science are you doing? Not doing science, but I don't like yours.
Political science.
Yeah.
That's a science too. That's really important to not joke. I mean, I'm joking, but it's true.
It's true.
It's a very real science that most of us participate in every single day of our lives.
Sure.
Like, I'm a registered grassroots lobbyist because the state requires that, because I go and talk to people on behalf of our membership.
Yeah.
And have some reports and tests I have to take every year. But it's nothing different than what you all have. You have a voice. You have freedom of speech to a certain extent. You have the ability, when you're not trying to friggin' make enough money to pay for all your bills, to possibly go down to Annapolis. Like, we have glimpses of representative opportunity, right? Especially on the state government level. But my point is that everybody's a lobbyist in some way. Like, from the moment you cry as a little baby, you're doing something to try and get a reaction.
Sure.
So even those political science type responses are inevitable. And they're like that in every single issue. And you mix the media the agencies, and then potential differences of opinion of stakeholder groups.
Yeah.
Watch the clicks happen.
Right.
It's a very difficult space to try and dig in to go, all right, how do we find agreement here? And in the end, just like any human to human relationship, in politics, relationships matter.
Yeah.
And I encourage people to try and enter this stuff for the long haul. Think of it like a marathon, because the relationships you make on day one, the decisions you make, the opinions you have, maybe even the organization you go to work for is going to affect your success or failure as an advocate or as somebody in the
Yeah,
arena.
it can't be an all-out war because nobody
and-
wins. And if nobody wins, that means the Bay loses.
Well, and often when I hear the criticism of CCA that's not true, I laugh and I roll my eyes about it, because I'm like, the time could be spent to actually understand what we're trying to achieve and talk about what you want to achieve the outcome. Because if stakeholders, non-government people, can work together to try and go to the government with a solution that works for us, it's harder for them to say no.
Yeah. Now, I'm sorry to do this, but I think we're going to set up another time with him. We might do it shortly because obviously we could be sitting here and talking, but we actually have to cut this a little short because we need to get out of here. But maybe what we'll do, maybe instead of coming in, maybe we'll do this remotely because then we can do it sooner.
Well, we got fish to talk about too. We talking
Yeah, we haven't talked about striped bass or anything yet. But
Menhaden.
huh?
Menhaden.
Menhaden, we had me and Austin had a long discussion about
That'll
Menhaden.
be
So
3 episodes.
yeah, so we're going to do this again. I think that if we do it remotely, we're going to do this live. Okay, we'll do it live. That way you can share some of your stuff on your computer and everything, like you did the last time. But if you'd like to support this channel, we'd like to thank David Sikorski from the CCA for coming and hanging out with us, because it's very educational. Every time we go in, we listen to somebody that deals with this on a daily basis. So we're going to do this again, but on the screen, we got a QR code. If you'd like to support me in Austin and see more of this and get some better equipment so we're not doing it like this, you can buy us a coffee. You can donate, or you can go ahead and become a member. And then we'll do some special stuff for anybody that's a member, maybe some behind the scenes or something like that. So me and Austin will see you next time.